So welcome everybody here to our panel on professional development and entrepreneurial activities. And so I can just, I guess, briefly introduce our participants here. So we have Dave Putnam, faculty member and the newly appointed, is it Associate Dean for Entrepreneurship? What is the official? Close enough. He'll present the full details. And then we have Brooke here, one of our first year BME PhD students, Joseph, who's in my lab, just a little further advanced in the first year, and then Etty. And let's see, did I miss anybody else? I think that's it for now. So if you just maybe briefly introduce yourself, and then we'll just open the floor for questions.
You want us to introduce ourselves? Yep. Oh, I thought you already, that's fine. Okay, hi, my name's...
I think if you just say a couple of sentences in terms of what your experiences or maybe your activities.
Yeah, great. So my name is David Putnam. I'm a professor actually in two departments here. Biomedical engineering is my main department, and chemical engineering is my minor one. I do a lot of work in functional biomaterials and drug delivery for my research, but a big component of my work is translational work or translational research. So a lot of our materials systems are licensed out into separate companies. So right now there are 3 companies now that are moving forward with tech that came out of my lab, all driven by the students. And so they needed someone to help organize entrepreneurship here in the College of Engineering. And so they created a new associate dean position that I was just named to 2 weeks ago. So I really don't know exactly what I'm doing yet, but the good thing about entrepreneurship is you make it up as you go along. I'm pretty good at doing that. So good to meet you all. And also, I haven't had any lunch yet, so I've got a sandwich here that I'm going to be eating, but I'm going to turn my camera off so you don't have to see me chewing.
I'll go next. Hi, everybody. I'm Brooke. I'm a first-year student this year. I did my undergrad, my master's, and then worked in industry for a little bit, and I never thought I would be doing a PhD. But here I am, and I'm very excited to be here. But because of that, I know I want to go back into industry one day. And with the research I'm doing, I know that I want to commercialize it. So I've been exploring Cornell's resources this year for entrepreneurship, and I'm really excited to talk about it.
So I can go next. I'm a little different. I don't specifically focus on entrepreneurship myself, but I focus a little bit more on the professional development side in terms of science policy, science communication, and sort of understanding how to translate our research to a lay audience. So that could be anything from, talking to your grandma about your research to talking to a policymaker about how a particular policy affects science or how science can help a particular policy. So I've spent a lot of my professional development activities here at Cornell focusing on that type of venue, on top of the research that I do for Jan, obviously. So.
Hi guys, I'm Etty, and I'm in a second year in Olivier Elemental's lab. I was a professional development co-chair last year for BMES. I've also had a little bit of experience in industry and now want to go back into it. And I've been using on-campus resources as well to do things like informational interviews and just learn more about the different trajectories in industry.
And then we are just joining us now is Chelsea from Jonathan Butcher's lab as well. So if you can briefly introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi guys, sorry I'm late. I had a hard time finding the link. But yes, like Jan said, I'm Chelsea Stevens. I'm my 4th year in Jonathan Butcher's lab. And I've been dabbling in entrepreneurship for like the last year and a half. And I've been doing some really cool things by, so this year I joined eLab. Well, I was like admitted into eLab. Which is a startup accelerator for Cornell students after like if you're a junior and above. So everybody here would technically be eligible. So yeah, I've been working on a couple of things, one nonprofit and a for-profit. So yeah, if you have any questions about that, one thing that I'm trying to do is like Cornell is very particular about how getting their equity and people who are trying to pursue entrepreneurship. So if you're interested in like not going through like being at Cornell but not getting equity or giving them equity in your company, then I'm trying to like finesse that so I can ask questions or answer questions about that.
And I think the floor is open for questions, so you can either unmute yourself, you can use the chat, whatever you feel most comfortable with.
Don't be shy.
Can I ask the audience a question?
Go for it.
Who's here considering like a non-academic career path? Maybe like raise your hand, just interested.
I don't know quite yet. I'm still kind of in the middle. So that's one thing that I'm interested in at Cornell is just the different opportunities they provide so I can get a better idea of which path to take.
So to jump on that point, one thing I want to stress about Cornell is we have a distinct amount of resources for developing your career outside of academia. Academia itself is obviously, people like to say that anything outside academia is the alternative career, but really I see it the opposite way, in that academia is only a very small portion of PhDs who actually go in it. So being able to have a structure where during your PhD, you can actually develop as a person who can go into industry, go into communications, go into policy, or some other sort of avenue that you see that your PhD could be useful, that is going to be the program that's going to be extremely beneficial for you. And so what drew me to Cornell particularly is that they have careers beyond academia, which was originally the Cornell Best program. And that's sort of how I got introduced into the communications and policy world. And there should be a link in the virtual open house about what they do. And thanks to Belinda for sending that to the chat as well. Basically, it allows, the program allows you to do a one-on-one interview with some of their staff there to basically get an idea of what your interests are, and they can give you an idea of what resources to look out for. And then they also do a weekly newsletter of opportunities related to communications, to industry, to entrepreneurship and stuff like that. And then everybody else can obviously mention some of the other things related to entrepreneurship more than I can. But the key point is that we have a major resource hub for people who want to do careers beyond academia. And I think it's been one of the highlights of our program specifically on top of other programs at Cornell. So
it's important to note that that program is university-wide and is actually through the provost's office, right? The provost is the CEO of the university. And when it's funded through the provost office, it has real teeth behind it. It's not just a small little endeavor. It is a big endeavor. And it really drives home the message that as faculty, what we take no greater joy in you getting the job that you want, right? We don't need to make clones of ourselves to go into academia. That's not our goal. Our goal is to position your research and your pedigree so that you can get the job and the career that you're going for, that you want. And this BEST program, or is now the Careers Beyond Academia program, at the university level is a real testament to that. It's a really nice program.
I'd like to answer Katie's question. So she asks, are there opportunities to complete an industry internship? And the short answer is yes. There's been multiple students in this program who've done some sort of summer internship. And even this BEST program has helped, like I want to do one, and it's helped me prepare by learning how to make a resume and learning how to network with Cornell alumni or industry professionals in general. So I'm better prepared for when I do apply or when I do intern.
Yeah, I just want to second that. So we had a student in our lab who completed an internship, I think between like his 5th and 6th year. So it's really dependent on your PI. There's no formal program that allows you that says like, okay, students who come in will take it at this time of their PhD career. So I would just like, if you know that you're interested in industry and you would like to get some experience, then I would try to be like open and upfront with your PI initially. so that they understand that what your professional values and goals are, so that they can help you meet those. And the sooner that they know, the sooner that you can like structure your program so that you can not only complete your research, but also start developing yourself professionally. So that's my advice.
And it is strategic to do that early in your dissertation or late in your dissertation, not in the middle of your dissertation. Right? Early on is you're going to be learning some new techniques and meeting people. That's great. Late is you've done all your research and now you're trying to figure out the next step. If you do it in your third or fourth year, that is the meat of your research productivity, right, Chelsea? Is that right? Yeah, yeah. So you want to make sure you position it properly so it doesn't slow you down for your thesis. Who wants a company? Yeah, well, Brooke, yeah, but you're already here, Brooke.
I'll say that I'm kind of looking into it. I think it depends on like what happens at the results of like my PhD research and if it's going to be commercializable. But
yep,
a little bit curious.
So for those of you who are interested in starting companies or entrepreneurship, so there are 2 PhD level programs that are available to you. One is, it used to be a minor in entrepreneurship, now it's a certificate. But during your PhD, you take courses at the Johnson School, the business school. There are 4 courses that you take, 3 are required, and then there's 1 elective. And at the end of that, you should have, you know, the accounting and the positioning, the mindset on how to take technology, which, you know, the research that you're driving home every single day, combined with, you know, the business opportunity associated with that technology. Sometimes the technology is worthless. It's great for knowledge generation. That's what we're supposed to do as PhDs. It may or may not be translatable. Knowing whether it's translatable or not is half the battle, because you might be going down the road of this is the greatest technology, but there's no market, or there's no market yet. You need 10 years of runway until there's a market, for example. And that sort of allows you to do that. And then the second program is called Commercialization Fellows. And those are for PhDs that are towards the end of their dissertation. And it funds you for 6 months, summer and actually it's summer and the fall semester. And it allows you to take a specific technology. It can be either yours or a friend of yours or just some crazy idea, and bring it from idea all the way through market analysis, meaning you are interviewing, it's a requirement, 100 people in that sector that are telling you what's good and bad about your idea. You're talking to CTOs and CSOs and CEOs, biz dev VPs, and they're telling you what they want, or this is a great idea, or I hate this. Right? And at the end of it, you'll have a really good idea on the whole entire process, and it's at the end of your thesis. So you can kind of launch yourself either into a new company or say, yeah, this is not a good idea. There was something in the chat. Should I address it or no?
Actually, I wanted to kind of talk about that. So I think, and Dave, you can connect or correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the commercialization fellowship is specifically for people who are trying to commercialize their Cornell research. So if you're already, oh, it's not?
No, it doesn't have to be.
Okay.
It's easier to get into the program if you are, but it doesn't have to be. Yeah.
Okay. That was all I wanted to say.
I have a couple points I want to touch on. So I do see one question in the chat, and thank you for asking that. I'll get to it in just a second. But first, I missed this during my intro, but I'm actually the professional development chair currently for BMES. Etty was right before me. So she just passed the baton over to me in January. And so as chair for professional development, I'm kind of in the mode right now of like reaching out to my peers and asking them like, what do you feel like you need work on? And so our next event, which is going to come up in a couple of weeks, is we're going to do a financial event. So asking a professional about like taxes, student loans, that kind of fun stuff. But in the future, we'd like to target it towards people interested in industry and people interested in academia, because I feel like those are kind of black and white, and then maybe people in the middle of that. And just throughout the next year, like touching on what we feel like our peers need help with. So that could also be like let's help you with your resume. Let's help you with your LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is like the new virtual resume. And so like as you come into Cornell, feel free to reach out to me and be like, hey, I'm kind of interested in this. Like, can you point me to a resource or can you make an event? Because that's kind of my job right now. The other thing I wanted to bring up is I'm currently in a program. It's called We Cornell. It stands for Women in Entrepreneurship, and it's for women identifying and non-binary students. And it has been the coolest experience. I started it in the fall semester, and what they have the students do, so you kind of apply for it just to make sure you're actually interested, and then you get accepted, and you bring in an idea. And for me, I'm bringing in my research, because that's what I want to commercialize. But it actually opens it up to students who bring in just like an idea that they have. So, like an example is there's a lot of like app ideas for getting access to health resources. Um, one lady wants to start like a planetarium in Ithaca. Another one is like interested in an all-female gym. There's a plethora of ideas that people are bringing in, but it's really fun because I came in with like not a business bone in my body. All I know is like science and like, does it scientifically work? And they've really just like pounded into us. It's like it's so much more than that. It matters who your customer is. Are they actually interested? Like, what value do you offer to the customer? And we've been working months on developing our business models. And each week we come in and we present and they critique it. So I've gotten a lot of critiques. They're like, you need to stop thinking so much like a scientist. And it's kind of like pushed me to think about things a lot differently. So I've really enjoyed it in that way. And through it, I've interviewed possible customers. So I'm doing research, basically trying to make like an at-home breast cancer monitoring device to try and find palpable lesions in the breast. And so I've been interviewing breast cancer survivors, trying to figure out what their pain points are. So it's been really cool actually kind of going out in the field and talking to people about it and like what their pain points are. So that's kind of like what the program runs you through. And I think a couple other programs at Cornell do something similar, but I highly recommend the We Cornell program. And then to answer the question in the chat of why did I go from industry back into academia, it's because when I was working at a tech company, and a lot of the people I was working with, the product managers, a lot of them had their PhDs. They were super knowledgeable. And just working with them, I'm like, I really want to be a product manager one day. Like, I want to be able to see my product through and manage people. And I'm just like, I kind of want to gain that expertise. So that's why I came back into academia.
I wanted to expand on Brooke's point a little bit. So I only had a 3-month internship in industry, but I already saw that there was a pretty intense glass ceiling. Like if you didn't have a PhD, it was really hard for you to get into certain management positions, especially if it was on the technical side. And that's where I'm like also leaning towards, similar to Brooke. And that's also what motivated me to think about doing a PhD as well. I also want to talk about other resources that are not BME or grad school related. So one example is just joining student organizations. So the student organizations for consulting, if you want to go down that route, for venture capital, for even like even just like business in general, marketing, finance, and a lot of student orgs, and let's say like the Johnson School of Business, are open to PhD students as well. So I've been able to I guess network with those individuals, and they're a lot more professional orientated, and in 2 years they're out into the industry, whereas I'm still here, but those connections can last several years. Yeah, so Cornell is not just, the grad school, it's also a business school, there's also a red school, there's so many different schools that you can really go down any path if you really choose to do so.
A question I have that kind of goes off that, I know that Eti, you mentioned venture capitalism, and something that I think I'm trying to figure out a little bit is how much I think financial literacy has an influence on your entrepreneurial skills, especially as you're trying to commercialize products. So I'm just curious if maybe some of you could speak a little bit about the need for financial literacy and what that might look like in these programs.
So I think I can address that to some degree, I think. So financial literacy comes in two flavors. One is just learning from the classroom, learning accounting, learning how to structure finances, how to leverage finances. And that can be done very easily, either through one or two classes. It doesn't have to be a formal thing. You just take the class. You think you're deficient in something, just take the class. Tell your PI, ask your PI, say, I'd like to take this class. The answer your PI is going to give is, as long as it doesn't interfere with your research, go ahead. It's kind of the way it works, right? So you can't do the academic stuff, taking classes above and beyond what you can handle if your research isn't going well. And it's a balance. And the other half is just experiential, meaning that you're going to be surrounded by people who, if you choose to, who think and do and talk about entrepreneurship all day long. And they can be a wonderful resource just to learn it through osmosis. Just listen to them. What's a convertible note? Why do I want to raise only 500,000 with a convertible note, not 10 million with a convertible note? What are the pros and cons? Right? That sort of stuff comes with just experience. You can also interact with the startup companies here. So we have two incubators on campus. One is the McGovern Center, which is for life sciences, which is mainly where the BME stuff goes. And the other is Praxis, which is for physical sciences. So physics and chemistry, that sort of stuff. And interacting with students is fun and interesting and educational all around. So if you interact with those companies, you'll learn the financial clarity with just through osmosis. Does that, Allison, answer your question?
Thanks. I think it gives a better idea of what kind of structures or that you can obtain this knowledge through. Thank you.
Different structures. So the main structure, pragmatic structure would be the minor or the certificate in entrepreneurship. Right. Those are the courses you would take. If you look at yourself and you say, I know math and I know science, but I don't know, financial structures, then you take courses in finance. That's fine.
I'd like to add a little bit to that. So I don't know if this is open to people outside of the business school, but there is the big Red Venture Fund where MBA students actually act as venture capitalists, and they like manage a fund and they actually like give money to certain startups. So just figuring out who those people are. Again, I don't know if they're open to non-MBAs, but
they are.
Okay. All right. So then that's something that you can do if you're interested in doing being a venture capitalist. You can join that big Red Venture Fund, and then you get some exposure and practice on being a venture capitalist.
Same thing
also
with
classes are good.
Same thing with like the consulting student org. They also consult for real companies, so you can get real world experience through these business school student organizations.
Yeah, just to highlight sort of what everybody was saying is that I think Cornell especially does a really good job of identifying stakeholders and helping you interact with them, as well as developing informational interviews, which I learned were a thing during my PhD. It was basically you just reach out to somebody, you ask them about their particular expertise in something, or you give them a bunch of questions that relate to your topic. For example, with Allison, it'd be like venture capitalism, like how does this work? What's the sort of avenue for that? And so Cornell especially, I think, does a really good job of developing those resources for you.
I took a bite of my banana, so pardon me with my mouthful here. Starting up companies also involves raising dilutive capital and non-dilutive capital. Right? Dilutive capital, Chelsea was saying, give away equity for your company. Non-dilutive is you can write a bunch of grants, SBIR grants. And the first question that everyone asks is, how do I do this? How do I go about doing this? Well, there's a Center for Biotechnology here on campus. It's run by Matt DeLisa. He's the director of it. And they have an entire arm of that center devoted to helping people write SBIRs. They'll bring you through the whole process, how you position it, what institutes do you send it to, what are the mechanisms through which you can get money, which you can't get money, conflict of interests. And that's a resource that is extraordinarily valuable because this money is actually pretty easy to get. It's about a 33% hit rate. So if you write a good grant, you have a high probability of getting $500,000, $250,000 with a 6-page grant. The page to dollar ratio is very favorable. You just need to be able to write the grant properly, and the resources are here. Linda, how are you so fast on that? It's amazing.
Been in the university too long, you know this.
Oh, I guess I want to mention an obvious resource. Cornell has a job fair every semester. A lot of biotech companies and all sorts of companies come there just for us, like Cornell students. And there's a lot of alumni who come back and are very interested in talking to students and hiring them.
So there was a question in the chat, how connected are we with the biotech industry? Biotech industry is connected across campus. I wouldn't just have it be specific for BME. A lot of bioprocess engineering through chemical engineering is huge in biotech. Regeneron is a huge hire of our students. So if you're from upstate New York or downstate New York or New York City, Tarrytown is pretty close. There's a manufacturing facility in Albany. A lot of our students go out to Genentech. If you're on the West Coast, it's a big hire of our students. So I wouldn't say that there's, oh, this is a one-to-one biotech connection. No, meaning that Takeda is not coming in and saying here's $5 million, go do this project for us. That doesn't exist yet until I get my job done. But for hiring, there's a strong association for hiring of students into the biotech sector.
And just to add on to that, I was actually the former president for BMES way back in the day. And I know that we had a big push to really connect people with alumni, particularly alumni that are in industry. And I know that since then, we have expanded that quite a bit in terms of, like I said before, those informational interviews and seminars, people talking about their industry experience, and basically connecting people with the direct Cornell network that we have, those people that work at Genentech, those people that work at Regeneron, those people who work at Exponent doing scientific consulting, stuff like that. So we have a wide range of people to connect to. And I know that our department is doing a fantastic job of making sure that people have those opportunities to connect with them.